You may remember two ET mummies called the Nazca Mummies were displayed in front of the world back in 2023 in September. Now, the whole idea of this was very divided between believers that this thing was actually a mummified ET and non-believers saying that basically this was a whole concoction of different animal parts, bones put together, and it's a complete and utter hoax. So today I've decided to interview a gentleman called Ed Casas. Now, this is an extraordinary individual that's dedicated over 2 years of his life looking into these Nazca mummies to find out if these things are real or not. And what he's discovered is absolutely mind-blowing. So I've got to be honest with you, leading into this interview, I deliberately didn't do any additional research about these mummies. I didn't want to know because I wanted to learn from somebody who has done a deep dive. All I knew was these mummies were shown on the internet. I got excited. And then I found out it's more than likely a hoax. It was a concoction of different bones, materials from different animals. Job done. Forget about it. So some part of me is really glad that I did do that because I was like a kid just absorbing this information. But the other part of me, because he clearly knows what he's talking about, some of the terminology he used went straight over my head, but I tried to do the best, and come the end I sort of gathered a better picture of it. So I learned a lot from this interview, and I hope that you do too. Hopefully you're going to get something from this, and you might change your perspective on what these things actually are. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you subscribe because we're fast approaching 1 million subscribers. Hello, Ed. Lovely to meet you. Thank you so much for your time today. Obviously we're talking about the Nazca mummies that were found. Now, I want you to almost talk to me like I know nothing about this and I'm a total skeptic. I think that's the best way because when I first heard about it, my initial thoughts were, oh my God, this is really exciting. And then after a while, more and more information came through. Some things became a little bit shady for my liking. And it just, the waters were muddied in my viewpoint. And the reason why I've got you on today is because I want you to have this opportunity to spread the message, to say, hey, look, there's another side to this. So first of all, I think it's probably best to get a little bit of a background of like who you are, how you got into this.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Ben. I appreciate any opportunity to talk about this because, as you said, there was a misstep moving forward. And so I sort of recognized a need for kind of doing some damage control. Now, of course, my name is Ed Casas. I'm an independent researcher, so I'm not working for anyone or getting paid by anybody. In fact, most of this social media stuff costs me money, and I probably should be doing other things with my life.
Right.
It makes money, right?
Yeah.
But so I feel like, unfortunately, I do have to put that out there now because of all the sort of, dare I say, conspiracy theories that surround this.
Yeah, like a plant and things like that.
So a lot of people are going to ask, who's this guy? Why should I listen to him? And I have a theory that we're living in conspiratorial times, and many things are not believed, and you have to wonder sometimes: is there an effort to make people not just disbelieve, but be confused and not have an answer, not be able to latch on to some sort of what people are saying we're losing a shared reality. And this is a dangerous precipice for a society. So I'm hoping I can bring back a shared reality.
Okay. That's great because I totally agree with you. I think this, especially this day and age where you never know what's real because, like you say, damage control and things like that. So you have to go with your own instincts, I think, sometimes. Even sometimes you can look for evidence and think, well, could have that been planted? It's just, I think the overall thing is lack of trust in the world nowadays. I think that's what it is, right?
Right. So to give you my background, you know, I love to tell a little couple of quips about myself as a child. You know, I was like 8 or 9 years old when I found a tiny little blue turquoise looking Egyptian like shabti in my front yard in Pennsylvania. Now, was it really Egyptian? I don't think that mattered. What mattered to that 8-year-old was, wow, things can happen out of the ordinary that aren't expected. And not everything you don't know everything. So growing up, I experienced that wonderful Bigfoot video from the Patterson film and the In Search of episode. And I think that partially sent me on a quest because I was visiting my great aunts. Now, mind you, my aunt would take me to the museums as a kid, Native American museums, but my great aunts gifted me the Time Life books. So there was one volume dedicated to evolution, another to primates, another to early man. And so going through those books, I saw pictures of things that looked like Bigfoot. And my mother said, well, that's fake. But once as a child, if you have this from an adult telling you it's fake, you saw it on the film, right? And then you have these things in science that allude to something just like that. It definitely opens up your mind as a kid. So anyway, to make a long story short, I was going to major in something, and I do some acting at times, and so I could have majored in theater, and I was like, oh, what's the point of that? I'm already doing acting. What am I going to do with that degree? And I thought, you know what? I'll major in anthropology, and I could segue that into teaching history.
Okay.
That was the idea. Now, of course, I do recommend anyone out there, especially young folk, if you have opportunities to volunteer places, you probably should, because it may open up opportunities. So I went and volunteered at the local Natural History Museum, the Graves Museum of Archaeology and Natural History.
Nice.
And I volunteered there and started as a docent, which is a tour guide. But meanwhile, I'm at the college getting my major. I became president of the Lambda Alpha Honors Club, which was a lot of fun while I was there. And this happened late in my life, so I hate to really brag about it because, like, you know, I'm a grown man in college.
No,
it's like,
no, do it.
You know, some 20-year-old kid looking at me like, so it was fun doing that. And then lo and behold, through the museum, so many opportunities opened up, being able to work in the paleo lab and the archaeology lab.
Wow.
And of course, it was a natural history museum. So, you know, a good portion was on dinosaurs. So even though I didn't really go to school for dinosaurs, well, here I am. Now I'm learning about dinosaurs with people who went out to the West, have actually pulled these bones out. Now, I have to point out, I didn't get to go on dinosaur expeditions because somebody had to watch the store. Meaning I had to stay at the museum while everyone else went and did the grand adventure.
Yeah, so all the nice stuff. Right, nice.
So these things do happen. But all of these archaeology experiences opened up for me.
Let's start with this journey then. Originally, I can't remember off the top of my head. This was obviously in Peru, Nazca. Tell me about the date it was found, who found it, if you know this information.
You know what I'd like to do, to be honest, especially since we had this focus on myself. Why go into all this history at first when I wasn't even involved in that? I didn't.
Okay.
It didn't affect, because we want to talk about the truth of.
Okay.
And then we can get into that sort of history.
Yeah, no worries.
Because like anyone else, when that came across my feed of these little bodies in little boxes, I dismissed it.
Did you really?
Because why? Why did I dismiss it? They look fake.
Yeah.
They looked fake.
It looked like a cake.
Stories and the cake, of course. How many alien autopsies have we had over the years, et cetera, et cetera? I was not impressed. Right. But you know what, though? My girlfriend said, hey, did you check out those alien bodies? You might want to take another look at those.
Okay.
We like to bring that up because it's just funny how one little decision can just sway you off, right? I could have went on my life and probably been focused on my nonprofit. I run a nonprofit for actors and filmmakers. Okay. So we kind of put the tridactyls under the documentary in part of that that 501 not-for-profit,
Mm-hmm.
which, by the way, as an aside, with that organization itself, I've achieved over $30,000, I think it is, in grants
Wow.
from the local government to facilitate, well, a philosophy that I had at the museum, which is education through entertainment.
Okay.
So
Okay.
anyway, it's just funny how your path can change. I didn't believe it, but what did I start to believe is when I saw Dr. Jose Zalce Benitez giving a testimony before his government. Now, he was one of the first experts. So you'll hear a lot of people who know the name Jaime Maussan. It flows off their lips like butter.
Yeah.
Ask them to name that gentleman. Ask them to give the background and academic professionalism of that gentleman who was the lead forensic officer for the Mexican Navy. The lead forensic officer for the Mexican Navy. So if people want to focus on Maussan, I listen to the words of this man, give this testimony with graphics, saying this is this, and that's that. And then he mentioned another gentleman by the name of Cliff Miles.
Okay.
So we have a forensic anthropologist, which again, people may not realize, but anthropology is an umbrella of archaeology, linguistics, cultural anthropology, and even, such gory stuff as forensics.
Wow. Right.
They have to call in for example, my professor, and mind you, we had to take labs. There were several physical anthropological classes where you have to identify skull parts and hey, what do you know? I got experience in that, right? So, but he would be called out to mass graves after some horrible war took place to help identify individuals, right? Ooh, that's kind of you don't want that gig.
No, no, not at all.
So I think it's important. I don't know if people even understand what it means what this guy does. Not to mention it's for the and then
so it just automatically adds credibility, right?
Yeah, and he may have actually taught overseas, and a man doesn't just get there by pushing a button. Obviously, he had things that led him up to that. So again, focusing on Jaime Maussan is a disservice to this other gentleman because Jaime Maussan's not a doctor. He's not a researcher. And of course, conspiracy theorists abound. What's going to happen now is you're talking to me, even though I specified I'm not paid by anyone. Someone out there is like, he's getting paid to say this by Hutsa Hutsa. I don't know. This is make up something. Yeah. Anyway, let's stay focused, Ed.
I think that just for the people that at home who don't know who Mr. Maussan, how would you pronounce his name?
Maussan.
Maussan, yeah. Because he's not had the best of headlines before, right? It's a bit like what we call in the UK Marmite. You either like him or you don't like him. You either trust him or you don't you don't trust him.
Is that how it is? That's funny. Yeah. Well, I like Marmite.
Okay, yeah. So I think for a lot of people that was a red flag straight away. But then obviously fast forwarding to the Booger sphere, he's also been talking about that as well. But again, as you say, he's more like, in a way, like a spokesman to this thing, isn't he?
He's actually kind of inserted himself as such a spokesman. Now, in his defense, he is a 60 Minutes award-winning reporter, and 60 Minutes gets a lot of credibility in the credibility department.
Yeah.
So I think that's another thing in Jaime's defense. But Cliff Miles now is a paleontologist in Canada. So what we're seeing is, and no one wants to call out bigotry. It makes people uncomfortable, but it almost feels like people without knowing the true background are like, well, how they do things in South America. Well, how those Mexicans are. And it's like, so there's also that, it's almost, in the movie industry, if you notice all the Mexican films, they put that reddish brown filter over it. Yeah. So it's almost like someone took that reddish brown filter and stuck it over the tridactyl phenomenon.
Yeah.
But Miles, I think, really did it for me because I was able to read the report. I understood he was a paleontologist. He is a published paleontologist. Why he hasn't published since, because everyone's demanding peer review, right? And I'm not even really a research scientist or into writing these papers. but I've again been forced to, because I really want to have fun and show everybody the groovy cultural connections. But unless you believe that these bodies are authentically once living specimens, you'll never believe that, I see there's alien faces in ancient Egypt of thing. You'll never be able to get to that.
Yeah, well, this is why, I think it's important for you to be on, because I think that you've got a lot of slides, a lot of documents, a lot of pictures that you want to show us that sort of, prove that this thing is actually real and it should be taken seriously.
Right. So Miles sort of piggybacked off of Dr. Galetki, who was with Korotkov, the Russian bioluminescent doctor. On the fringe, but there's some science there. So Galetki was from St. Petersburg. He did seems to be one of the first real investigations. What's interesting today with a couple of the groups, because there is sort of different groups. That's the other thing. This is not some monolith, one group of tridactyl people all working together, which again, a conspiracy theory has been thrown about that, like, I'm working with somebody to waste my life every day to teach people something. It's just like absurd. It's just absurd. And so I am separate. I am literally an independent researcher. I do have a lot of support from friends who allow me to do the tech and help donate to certain things. So that's nice. And then, of course, there's tridactyls.org, and the original is the-alien-project.com, the-alien-project.com. That's Theory Jamin's site. So those two groups kind of splintered because the tridactyls.org is sort of Central America team, and Theories is sort of South American team. So there is even some conflict there. And that's the other thing people don't realize. It's, Mr. Masson isn't necessarily popular with the other team either.
Yeah.
And I've tried to work with everyone, Miles, and there doesn't seem to be much reciprocity. So a lot of the researchers focused on the hybrid beings because they found that was an easy attainable goal, perhaps, and I focused on the smaller ones. So anyway, I think we'd have to go back a little bit. I just want to wrap it up and say thanks to Zauce Benitez and Miles and those that came before them, I was now able to take that science. You can call it peer review or not. This is what they reported. They demonstrated it. I saw it. I was able to now piggyback off of that like they did and further the research and start putting all these things together. Now, I may have a few advantages over people. One, I have a saying that is the archaeology is predicting the biology. So by following patterns through the archaeological record, I was able to predict things about the biology. And so here's the truth of the matter as well. Once it sort of clicked, and I think this happens with a lot of people, it's almost like something I described in the cultural art of it all, something called perspective anamorphosis, which means to see some of this concealed steganography, this concealed art, the observer is going to have to be at maybe a certain position or an angle. But the other part of that perspective is believing. Believing is seeing. So for whatever reason, it clicked in my brain that these were authentic. I saw it in the scans. This is a once living body.
Yeah.
But the moment where it was like almost a spiritual enlightenment for me was when I recognized the tridactyls from petroglyphs in an anthropology class from 20 years ago.
Really? Right. Okay.
And not only that, but for whatever reason, you don't remember what questions you asked when you were at the university. For whatever reason, I remember asking my professor, this was like a People of the Americas class, I think it was the title. I remember asking him, hey, we've got these petroglyphs of these strange-headed, strange-fingered beings in Canada. I wasn't using tridactyl right then, or cordiform, meaning heart-shaped. I didn't know these words. And the Caribbean. We have these two disparate locations. And I asked, was there a connection to the culture? And even though these guys are like in the same hemisphere, standard archaeology is going to say, no, there is no connection because there's thousands of miles, there's thousands of years apart. Why would there be a connection? We call that, establishment archaeology, independent innovation. that means this guy over here just happened to invent the same thing as this guy over here.
Right.
Out of the ether. Poof.
Yeah.
Which is totally against anthropology, generally speaking, which implies that there's cultural diffusion. Everything is culturally diffused.
Yeah.
But that becomes hyperdiffusion and becomes a bad word amongst establishment archaeology. That's too much. That's too much diffusion.
Yeah.
So that is how I became intimately and personally involved, because I knew that what those petroglyphs were showing were these beings. It doubled down on their authenticity, and it started to enlighten me on how far and wide they were spread, because then that took me to the Maori and the Heitiki green stone artifacts. From there, it took me to the Dogu of Japan.
Wow.
From there, it took me to the Permian bronze castings of Europe.
Jeez.
To the Syrian eye idols. And what do a lot of these things have in common? They have images of, well, first I would say this. They are associated, these beings, these depictions of these beings, heart-shaped faces and tridactylism. They're also associated with serpent symbolism, water spiral symbolism, and mother goddess symbolism. So right there, it's almost like putting together a sentence, if you will.
Yeah.
What is all of this saying if these symbols are together?
Yeah.
And so what I've found is these heart-shaped faces are associated with fertility and ancestor worship. The Heitiki, which is a strange green little dude. I remember saying something about this in school too, actually. It's like, why would they think this little monster is the ancestor? I thought that back then. That didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I guess, is the rest of archaeology just accepting this? I don't know. It's like,
it seems like you've discovered a lot from just out of curiosity, you know?
Curiosity. And again, I think that once you understand these are real, it's almost, for me, it's almost like an enlightenment, because it allows you at the very least to make new connections. It's like your brain is making new connections.
Yeah.
I think it was circa 2015, actually, is when Wakero tomb raiders found these bodies dressed with artifacts nearby in something they're calling a citadel, one of these underground temples related to likely the Paracas culture. I'm not sure of the cultural names myself. Do you know, once I realized that these creatures were global and there was evidence of them in Peru, I kind of just pushed the Peru stuff aside. I'm like, well, somebody else is going to cover that.
Right. Okay.
Because everything else was so interesting. But the Paracas culture is the one that demonstrates these in hyper-realistic fashion in ceramics and in fabrics.
Yeah.
Now, I call it the Occam spork. Occam spork is when you come up with some simplistic explanation for something and believe it's true despite the evidence saying otherwise.
Yeah.
So the funny thing is that even after the bodies, there's still people using Occam spork saying, well, they drew 3 fingers because it's easier.
Yeah.
The hell? I got into anthropology because there's a reason for everything humanity does, and I say that reason is the tridactyls. So 2016, they get to Theory, who's more of an outfitter, adventurer, explorer, looking for lost gold, lost cities. I didn't even know if he wanted to deal with this. You know, somehow Jaime got involved, and I don't know how much he had to do with it, but bodies were sold by these Wakeros. So, you know, supposedly people are paying $1 million and they're going out to Russian oligarchs. The other strange tale is that supposedly the Wakeros are running into these things living still in the Citadel.
Yeah, I heard about that, right?
So I don't have any information on that. I try not to deal too much with that. You will rarely hear me talk about crafts or portals or dimensions. This is about the physical bodies and the cultural evidence of them in human culture globally, worldwide, and sometimes in dramatic fashions. So I did want to I think that's a good recap of, we kind of went all the way back to how fine. I think my jumping into is more important because you have to understand that, you know, it's as crazy as it sounds. I recognize these guys.
Yeah. Tell us what we're looking at here now then.
Okay. So we do have, and we'll have to go back in. This is called I'd say a temporary a paratype or not a holotype. So the holotype would be Josephina, which we can look at. So that means it's sort of the main specimen that the species are based on. This one's kind of the, I guess, the second. We call it second command here. Alberto. So this is Alberto. So they all have names. So when people when they talk about the specimens, you have to make sure that like what specimen we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's like saying like, you know, I don't know, guys for the New York Yankees, you know, he got arrested for cocaine or something. And then they're all guilty of that. That's kind of going on. So you have to, if there's a problem with a specimen, I'm saying this to the skeptics, you know, if you feel like there's something wrong, you have to be specific. What specimen, what finger, what hand.
Uh-huh.
So what can we say just by looking at this image? You were expecting to see something else, weren't you?
Yeah. Because I've been on the website and
so they've
got a few different types of ET on there, right?
They're all from Nazca. They're all varying degrees of hybridization.
Okay.
So that's why this one here,
you can tell by now, right, that originally I dismissed this case. This is why I find it really intriguing and important for me to speaking to you, because I'm like now like a sponge absorbing all of this in, right?
Right. So I didn't bother with the hybrids because Miles had done so much work with the little ones, you could call them. I was even using like Hindu terms because I've already culturally decided who these are. I joke that not only do I know what their biology is, but I can tell you culturally who they were and who some of their early individuals were. Because I don't believe these are just specimens. Alberto has a metal implant on his hip, which I immediately start thinking of myths about Vulcan and Hephaestus. I didn't do much work on the hip, but what I did work on is this ear. So we'll have to look at a healthy specimen. This is trauma here.
Is it?
This is now Miles noted the ear, and he did note displaced was the term. So he seemed to have known that something was amiss. This ear should probably be pivoted like 45 degrees this way, and it's on the interior of the creature.
Right.
So we are looking at the interior audio.
Yeah.
So I made note of that, which was great because culturally there's something called the mind-born motif I noted. So how different is Josephina? Well, she's got a healthy hip. She has one of these metal implants up in the breast area.
Yeah, what are these implants all about? What is this?
Well, now remember we said we were going to talk about the furcula. So she has a fused interclavicle, and that is a furcula. But more importantly, you might want to even call it a protofurcula. So, and then also it has Miss Josephina here, like the other ones, has these stomach ribs, which you're only going to see in like a crocodilian. So you can see why I didn't want to deal with those other hybrids. How boring are those?
Yeah.
Let's look into these things.
Yeah.
So, you know, the implant could be for multiple reasons. I've even speculated as far as saying there's these Greek artifacts out there, which are these metal cones that are suggested to have been used as breasts to put milk in. And there's this myth of Zeus and the she-goat. He was fed by a she-goat. And so, I mean, I don't know. They're having hybrid children. The Sicilian amphibian worms, those elongated amphibians that are worm-like looking, they actually, it's been proven recently that they do produce a sort of proto-milk.
Okay.
So here's Josephina. That's why the type, we'll say like J-type, they'll call it a J-type is what I hate using some of the terminology, but we'll have to go with the common usage there. So yeah, they call the J-type. So that's why I say she's the holotype. She's sort of the primary specimen. This
is all from that website, isn't it? Where you can.
So these are all from tridactyls.org. If your audience wants to, they can. If you have to apply for this, they were kind enough to give me access, and I've done wondrous things with it. So yeah, if you want, as a medical person, some sort of educational professional, you can go to tridactyls.org.
Okay.
Or right now, if they're watching, they can go to the-alien-project.com and start interacting with the CT scans yourself, man.
This is what I visited.
So this is from Victoria, who I call the seated god. And again, I believe these are not just random specimens. These are individuals that may have been depicted throughout history. What you're looking at here, this central canal. So I just released within the past couple of days a science paper. Maybe it'll get published. I mean, I've put it in many different journals, but maybe it'll get peer reviewed, I think is the proper term.
Yeah.
If not, it's still the documentation to my best knowledge. But it's funny. I just released that 2 days ago, and now I'm working on the reproductive system. So this is not a spinal column. This is not an esophagus. What I believe it is, and we may have to switch to Louisa. Let's switch to Louisa. So we're all over the place today, right? We've got some of the hybrid children up there. We've looked at Alberto and Josefina, and now we're going to go check out Louisa. Louisa's kind of my favorite. Louisa helped me realize, well, everybody's calling them reptilians, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
But
I didn't know that. Are they calling them the reptilians?
Yes, that's what Theory and his gang is calling them. That's what Miles alluded to. In fact, that's what they're specifically calling the little ones, even some people. Well, again,
is this because of the eggs? Is what they found primarily in the stomach?
Maybe, or just sort of cursory. Maybe just running with pop culture. I mean, they also call the ones, there's smaller ones with spinal ridges on the back that look very bestial. I'm assuming that they're a basal version, an older version. Maybe they're youth. I don't know.
Right.
But looking at, I think they're just a younger version, I think.
Okay.
But they call those insectoids. So, I mean, you could argue that there's been missteps by calling it the Alien Project, using the term reptilian, and using the term insectoid. You could argue that case. Maybe that was too soon, because I don't think they're alien. I think they're terrestrial.
Right. Okay.
I don't think they're reptilian. I think they're amphibian. Why? Cursory look, you can say on the surface, I see 3 digits. That right there, on Earth, there are plenty of amphibian species, frogs, salamanders, with 3 fingers. Okay, great. That's just superficial, though, right? Yeah. And that's where a lot of the Occam spork skeptics stop. They stop at the hands. I even told someone they were doubting the diatomaceous earth. So those of you who don't know, they're covered with a diatomaceous earth that you might use in gardening or your pool filter. Well, what's great about these microliths that are in it is it keeps insects away. In fact, it can kill the insects like glass. The diatomaceous earth can work its way into the insect. So it kept the body safe from pests.
Right.
Well, but it's also wasn't really industrial made until the 1800s. So these are on these bodies from as far back as the 200s.
How do you know that they're on these bodies then?
The diatomaceous earth, it's that white powder. Okay. So Peru, they found them in these diatomaceous caves, and it is an industry in Peru.
Right. Okay. Right.
So, but someone was saying that the white powder was fake, and I said, you know what? I don't care if it's powdered sugar at this point, because there's so much other stuff. You know, I'm looking at furculas and whatnot. I don't really care about your theory on the powder at this point.
Yeah, but shouldn't you question that though? Because if they're faking the powder, say for example, then the question is, what else are they faking?
Yeah, but they're not faking the powder. It's just it's just silly. I'm sorry. I get it. People are skeptical, but instead of focusing on this stuff that may be questionable, let me show you things that aren't questionable.
Yeah.
So here we are. We wanted to get in and look at closer to the eggs. Now, are these eggs supposed to develop? Oh, I see. I changed the slide. Are they supposed to develop in that canal? Let's see what's in the egg, shall we? Since we got you here.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, because I
Those-
noticed you can go from like the outer to then the flesh and then the bones and then internal, can't you, on this website?
Right. So there's different scans, and
Yeah.
I think we see something already here. So here's 2 eggs. We're going to zoom in, and we're going to look at this gray blob right here. That's fun. So that gray blob, we have a dark spot, which would seem as though in typical scans, that dark spot represents an eye.
Right.
Now, this is just one of many. So let's just go through the egg and see what else sort of appears. And there's different, we can also play with the lighting on this. And
so we're actually pushing through different layers right now as you're zooming in, right?
Right. So right here's another black eye. And we have a sort of elongated head. Now, some of this, I know people are going to be like, I try to tell people who complain about the images, I'm like, this is not Bigfoot. This is not a blurry UFO. This is what we have to deal with.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to find best scans, and we're going to try to get in there and, try to find the best image that can hopefully convince people. So we're looking into the eggs of Louisa, and we're trying to locate some larval forms. And I think I'll probably play you a nice color video also, so we can move in, because we see the black eyes again, right?
I mean, obviously, you know what you're looking for and what you're looking
Right.
at through history. So for somebody who's untrained, I'm just looking at blurs and
You're
blobs.
looking at blurs. That's fine. That's
and
fair.
I'd much rather be honest with you. This is what I'm looking at. And this is, I suppose, what most of the general public are looking at.
Yeah, it's hard. So let's go, since you brought that up, that's a perfect segue into something that's more tangible, I suppose you could say. So we're looking at the eggs of Artemis, and these scans are a combination of the scans you can find and also the video that the Alien Project released. The eggs appear to be in a state of hatching,
right?
Because there's these sort of flares coming off of them.
So these were still inside the body, right?
Yes.
So they were hatching inside the body.
Yes. That's called ovoviviparity.
Right.
So that in itself, plus the fact that it's alluded to that they breathe cutaneously. So we have 3 fingers, they're breathing cutaneously. Ovoviviparity, it starts to become more and more clear that these are amphibians. Now you'll hear people talk about the larger hybrids, and they'll talk about Maria's fused lower vertebra, her fused lower sacrum. Okay?
Yeah.
And they also talk about her not having a navel.
Right.
Well, in my opinion, that fused lower sacrum is what's remained of what's called an urostyle, which is what happens with frogs when they absorb their tail.
Right.
And there are Peruvian depictions, what people thought maybe were large penises hanging between their legs, which I suggest they're not. Those are tails. So also in the cosmological record, my friend, time and time again, we hear about people or beings that can shapeshift. Right. Shape-shifting beings. I think maybe that shape-shifting was actually more of perhaps a misinterpretation of metamorphosis.
Okay.
So if Maria lost a tail, that means she could have been a mermaid at one point.
Yeah.
So what we're showing is I'm going to go switch screens. What we're looking at is...
It's amazing how mythology can sometimes, just really explain a few things, you've just connected.
These type of artifacts that guided me into searching for the larval forms in the tridactyls. I think most people expected to see one baby ET in those eggs. This is a Hongshan pig dragon. Okay?
Yeah.
These might be real. These might be fabrications. This one's got some weight to it.
Wow.
These are Hongshan pig dragons, and we'll go back to the screen so you can take a look at some of the other ones. That one's beautiful. Oh, yeah. Let's go back.
Yeah.
Where'd it go? That one right there. So it's things like these where it guided me and said, okay, so the ancients knew about these. They're probably green because green jade was very popular across the Pacific Rim. That's why I suggest there should even be a new cultural term. Okay, we're going in. How fun is this? Right there. Now that's that same flared piece we looked at earlier. And it's making around. There's a top view of it.
Oh, now, I see, yeah.
By many researchers, supposed paleontologists who would fight me on this every time. So the same people that said that a broken llama skull was a tridactyl face, right? Those same people tried to convince me that what I was finding was pareidolia. So yeah, it is getting a little heated. If you're going to start, questioning me, but you're going to push your silliness, I keep calling it.
Yeah. I mean, because pareidolia is a real thing, especially when you have something like an idea and an image in your head that you really want to believe, but again, it falls back to your experience looking into these things. That's where it becomes more fact, right?
And you know what I was taught about pareidolia years ago, that pareidolia was some sort of Mother's Nature defense mechanism to ensure that we didn't kill little cute things with big eyes.
Yeah.
That's what I was taught back in like 2000, many years ago. Let's go back to this short video because it's about to get interesting where we're going to see...
So this catalog of different... I'm just going to call them beings. This catalog of different beings that was on this website then, why was it only and I call it, I understand that all of these now are from Nazca, but why weren't these shown more dramatically like the two Nazca mummies that were found? These just seem to have gone off the radar for me, anyway, like for the general public.
You mean the little ones?
Yeah.
The little ones were the ones that were first shown at the Mexican Congress.
Yeah, that's right.
Those are the ones that were in the little box.
That's right.
I think what happened was partially because of the confusion of the doll. I think people wanted to go with what they could prove is real. So they could prove the hybrids were living beings, whatever they are. So here we're kind of looking up at it. The being is looking up towards the sky with its head kind of leaned back, almost like a leaning back sphinx head. And there's another top and side view.
Yeah, I can see it more so on the side, yeah.
There's a close-up. I don't know if you're familiar with Marvel's Sasquatch, but that's what it looks like to me. Looks like Sasquatch from the Marvel comics. But the main shot's coming up where we get a nice profile of this guy. You can see him there. You can see his little front arm. So that's the other thing I suggested, since I figured they were amphibians that went through metamorphosis. The archaeological record also informed me that it was four-limb first metamorphosis, meaning they were going to grow their front legs first before anything else.
Right.
Well, there you go with that. So that was a nice side. So I knew you said you had trouble seeing. Did you see that side view though?
Yeah, absolutely. I saw the side view. Absolutely, yeah. What would you say is the most compelling piece of evidence? Which is basically like you cannot disprove it. Like this is hardcore fact now. I mean, you've probably got a whole range of different things, but is there one piece of evidence that you just think is undeniable? This is a real thing that we're looking at here.
You know what? So let's just. So you said what is the most compelling?
Yeah.
Well, that is why. I mean, again, I am not. I wanted to be the cultural guy. I wanted to look at all the fun artifacts.
Yeah.
I was sort of forced into this this role, if you will, as looking into the biology. I just felt that not everything was being done that should be done. So also we have to know that in the skull, what was predicted by the archaeology was that there are larvae in the skull because there is a motif about life from the mouth motif, and where larval forms are being ejected from the mouth, or as I mentioned, the mind-born motif. So I know this is another blur for you, but it's just funny. I kind of just put this picture in here randomly, but even still, it captured one of the larvae. So what you're looking at here is a long scorpion-like tail, and then a curved minnow-like head facing down, which is feeding. So the larva, which I was able to predict with the archaeology, then found in the eggs hatching, I now found also in the skull and the body cavity, because of the ovoviviparity and because of this strange system of this birth canal, which it's possible that the gonads may actually be near the brain. That is a research.
That's crazy.
Yes, because these beings, we're calling them reptilians again, is probably not a good idea because they have so many invertebrate traits. So the other great thing that I've discovered, and this was just by chance also, I was looking at a sagittal cut of Alberto, and I noticed that Alberto has a pineal gland. Now, this is one of those things too. That's why when people, and there's the, by the way, that's the inside of Alberto's ear. That's the one that's been moved.
Oh yeah, the one that we said at the beginning, right? Yeah.
And I think we need to go back to well, maybe we got to go for it. That's why I pulled this up, because I just wrote this just now. So there's some great graphics here that we can just zip through. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we got the pineal gland here. Here's a top view. I could zoom in also. I could probably, would you like me to go to full screen for this?
Yeah, but you can do. Yeah, absolutely.
Or you like me to? Okay.
No, I think where you are now is fine. It's absolutely fine. I can always do
Then I'll just zoom in from here. Perfect.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
So this is a top view, and I did something that's probably unethical.
Right.
But I sent this to the leading researcher on dual photoreceptors such as this. What do I mean by dual photoreceptors? It has this parietal eye, but then it also has a pineal organ. It has a dual photoreceptor, and it's rarely seen. You can see it in lampreys, primitive vertebrates, or you can also see it in this extinct monitor lizard. So I sent the picture to this guy. I'm like, hey, what do you think? Is this a dual photoreceptor? And he's like, oh, it looks like it, but that would be highly unusual because that looks like a mammal skull. So he thought he was looking at a mammal skull. I didn't tell him what he was looking at. So I kind of used his quote without his, without his knowledge.
You tricked him to say, yes,
tricked him to get it unbiased.
Yeah, absolutely.
Information.
Yeah.
And so you can see that pineal gland is reflecting in the, and that's colorized, of course, too, but you can see that.
Yeah.
And a little more close-ups of that. Here's a black and white version. This might actually also have captured another larva, possibly in the a lot of the parts of the skull are pneumatic, likely for floating. So here's a baby skull tridactyl, and I think I captured the parietal pineal complex here in it with this brighter point here and this brighter point here. Why? Because it's calcium rich, so it reflects.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it's funny. I shared this at first. I thought it was just normal. That's what normally what it would look like. I had no idea that it's actually unusual to have a dual photoreceptor. Right. So I kind of tricked myself too.
Yeah.
So that's.
Well, I suppose that helped you. I suppose that helped you because if you knew that wasn't the case, you may have dismissed it.
That's true. I may have looked for something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then when I was doing the graphics, I noticed that I'm like, oh, is it jumping? Why does it look like it's jumping? And I don't think it was jumping. I think there was the angle was capturing both the pineal and the parietal.
Right.
So the otic or the hearing capsule, I think, is super important too. And then you go to the inside of Artemis's skull. You can see the proper placement as opposed to Alberto, which. So these hybrids, I've just shown you a couple images. The larvas make it into the skulls because that might be a birth canal that's causing the cranio-torso continuity. So that's one of the reasons people thought it was fake. They were suggesting because, well, the skull connects right to the body. How is that possible? But it really, it seems to be a birth canal because it's already been suggested that they may have been on a liquid diet.
This is mind blowing. This is crazy.
So yes, it is. So the ear bone looks like it's designed for underwater use. So it definitely alludes to frog, but it could be like a proto whale ear bone.
Right.
And then just going in deep, there's another just angle of it. And so I wanted to make sure I put together. So you'll hear you won't hear anyone else talking about these things having fangs. I don't think the fangs are showing up on all the scans.
Oh, really? Fangs?
So this one seems to have a fang, which makes sense because everyone noticed this here, right? And they suggested that that's where the liquid diet would enter.
Oh.
But now I realize, well, that's like a holster. I don't even know the proper name. I tried to find it. It's got a recess that catches the canine. So if they survived on a liquid diet, then they would pierce perhaps a fish or something with those canines and absorb the blood.
Wow, you've got a good eye, I tell you.
Well, this takes, right, that's the other thing. It takes time. So I have to go, I put it away, right? It's like a video game. You ever hear the stories about people playing a video game? You keep dying, you keep dying, you keep dying. You put it down, you walk away, you take a break, you get on, first try. This is the same thing. You got to like put it away and then come back.
Fresh eyes,
think people aren't talking about Suye's teeth. It appears like she has teeth, which could be a lamprey parallel. So again, we're back to that sort of a feeding technique that may rely on rasping. And this is just something from what a wonderful species name, vampire flying frog tadpole. Just to demonstrate there are parallels, and here's tadpoles with fangs.
Oh my God.
So that's real. That's reality.
Yeah.
Australia, we talked about those floating stomach ribs found in crocodilians. Here's a nice shot of the interclavicle or the furcula on Victoria. Eurostyle, that's that tailbone on Maria. This is an actual diagram of an amphibian Eurostyle. And that's what I suggest we're seeing on Maria. And
my God.
Again, it was Louisa that actually, I saw Louisa's tailbone. I'm like, oh, that's frog butt. But then Maria,
what I'm picking up here now, sorry to interrupt, but what I'm picking up now is that if all of these were faked and things like that, the amount of detail that you're picking up on these things, that, why add in? If it was fake and all these different minute parts that you're picking up.
Why would you ensure?
Why would you bother doing this, right?
I don't know how you do it unless you're God Almighty. That's the other thing people can't explain. There's even this one guy who's like, he couldn't explain, the finger morphology.
So. Yeah.
But their arms are longer in the front, and since they have some strange sort of joints that are,
that looks like an alien. I'm sorry, but that looks like a bloody alien.
To be fair, this is AI. I used art to put it in the four-legged stance.
Yeah.
So,
the general shape of these heads and the bodies, the long arms, the three fingers, it does scream alien, right? It does.
Well, why is that?
Well, it's just because of what we recognize as an alien being, right?
Well, why is that?
Is because of what we've been shown over years and years.
Yeah, but not
movies,
just that.
Movies, comics.
Eyewitness reports. Right? These are testimonies from abductees who we, including myself, have dismissed and gaslit. Now we have the physical evidence. Wow. I even suggest, people talk about the Fiji mermaids. You know what those are?
Fiji. Well, I know what mermaids are, but I'm not.
Fiji mermaids are monkeys that are sewn to fish tails. So people always say, like, what are these, just Fiji mermaids? I think the way we should look at it is I've been pulling out all the Fiji mermaids out of the drawers and re-looking at those. That's the way I see it.
What about is there any evidence of vocal cords or anything like that?
No, because they don't have like a trachea. So any sort of communication might rely on, well, what are they going to sound like? I've got a couple of theories for you. Listen to the amphibian worms call for their milk.
Oh, really?
There's a lot of clicking.
Oh, yeah?
Listen to the Bushman language. There's a lot of clicking.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
One of the names some of the names that seem to follow the deities through our collective history are names like Ka and Ki and Ku.
Right.
So they may have been clicking noises and may have been using that, possibly may have worked in unison with that ear bone even. That could have,
Yeah.
at
But
least
again,
underwater.
like, when you say clicking, whenever I hear, and this is just me, my sort of like idea of aliens and things like that. Whenever
They
I
would be
hear,
talking like that too?
it'd be like that, like yeah, exactly, right? Yeah.
Yeah, man. And so here's another look at the egg. So you can almost think of it as like shrimp.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a bunch of little shrimp in that same egg. So again, a lot of people were talking about that. And we did see, again, we saw that cut of the creature. What I suggest is it's possible that these creatures may actually be born pregnant.
Really?
Because this is going into an embryo within the egg of Artemis. And then the last thing I really want to cover is adelphophagy or embryophagy, which we have here an example of tadpole upon tadpole predation.
Yeah.
And I suggest that this image here is a close-up of one of the larvae inserting its fangs into the skull of another larva.
You might want to scroll down a little bit more. Can you do that?
Sorry. There you go.
There you go. Yeah, thank you.
And so I did commission an artist. So you see the dark spots again are the eyes. You have the sort of supraorbital arches. And then I commissioned an artist just to make this to sort of, because like you said, people are having trouble seeing what I'm seeing. So to help get an idea, help start to depict the tails, which are long and whip-like. And then again, they end up in the skull and other parts of the body. So here's a couple of larvae feeding on the skull, much like you would see maybe a minnow consuming some decaying flesh at the bottom of the pond.
Yeah. So my question would be then, where are these now? What happened, do you think? Why aren't we? But then the locals claim to have see these things all the time, right?
Right. So, in which case, and if we're gonna reconsider our abductees, these are, I believe, the Greys, and they may have different hybrid versions. So you have ones that are more human. That explains your Nordic whites. You have maybe some enforcer types that are reptilians.
So you legit think like these are the Greys, and not necessarily then from another planet, another universe. Like, these are always been here.
Their morphological traits have led me to believe that if you were to extrapolate Victoria's unknown DNA, right, as one data set, and if you were to look at all these morphological traits, some of them which allude to the invertebrate-vertebrate cusp, meaning, I've already suggested they're proto-amphibians and they're proto-tetrapods. But with some of these things like tubular hearts, and the likelihood that their necks could extend due to hydrostatic use, meaning they would inflate themselves
like
with
E.T.
liquid, like E.T. And we have to remember that Spielberg worked intimately with Professor Hynek of the Blue Book program.
And in fact, there was actually lots of photos and the comparison between E.T., the face, and these.
Yeah, so of course people are going to joke and say, "Ha ha, it looks like E.T." It's like, "Ha ha, E.T. looks like them."
Yeah. I was just going to say, yeah.
And I talk to people. I always feel like I have to come back and just do a show on the cultural because, again, I can't have you believing the art and the cultural if you don't believe the biology.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to pull up this diagram. The other weird thing that people say is like, literally, no science has been done. Maybe literally.
Well, it's funny about talking about the the skeptics, because I've got some skeptical questions here, right? So one of which is the DNA evidence in controversial with the mainstream scientists saying that the unknown DNA is just degraded human DNA contamination. What would you say about that?
So on this specific study, they're suggesting that the corrupted DNA can be separated. Contaminated DNA can be separated.
Right.
So even after contamination, you still end up with known DNA.
Right.
So for example, Maria has 2 different chimp species, and she has Han Chinese and Myanmar Asian in her. Okay.
Right.
That's,
okay.
First of all, people are saying, well, how can you mix the two? How can you mix? It can't be real because you can't do that. But we have something, so you can't think like that. So you have to think the opposite. How did this happen?
Yeah, absolutely.
And, the Han Chinese part in the Myanmar wasn't a surprise to me, though. I kind of already knew that.
Right.
I said we have to do a sort of a show on the cultural aspects of all this. All this research brought me to a serpent mother goddess that originates in the Tibetan plateau, in the Himalayan plateau near Mega Lake Gobi, where we have the advent of the Naga belief system and the dragon beliefs. Us Westerners have to get over ourselves because people in Asia, maybe more so in the past, declared descendancy from dragons, from Nagas. These weren't just fairy tales to them.
Yeah.
And one of the amazing Naga tribes that I found, it looks like they tattoo the temporal process, these bony projections off the skull onto their faces. It looks like they tattoo their skin. I talk about the archaeology predicting the biology. I kept seeing patterns of cross-hatching hashtags, right? Yeah. And I noticed, I'm like, oh, it's like associated. This seems to be with a lizard and a snake. I'm like, okay, so that cross-hatching probably alludes to reptiles. It's probably alluding to the tridactyls as well, okay? This got me into like an argument with like some people I was trying to work with. And like, you don't know that. There's no proof of that, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, well, of course it was a hypothesis that I developed after research. Yeah. Don't you know when we saw close-ups of the skin, there are cross-hatching rhomboid shapes in the skin. I suggest that skin was emulated into even our ceramic culture here in South Florida and the Eastern Woodlands, where you can still. So, part of my whole theory is I call it the theotherianthropic graphene theory. Meaning, well, that's
a sentence.
I know, I did that purposely. I did. I like, you could just drop part of that in. Nah. Theotherianthropic graphene theory, which means our letters and symbolism was all stemming from their morphology. They had to teach the simple primates in some way. So why do we use a heart symbol every Valentine's Day? Because that's the shape of their face. And they were associated with ancestors by the Maori, fertility with the Syrian eye idols, mother goddesses to the Caribbean, and creator beings to the Easter Island people. But still, I'm like, why that heart thing? But you know what? I never understood that as a kid. But when you take this head and you put it like this, it does kind of look a little bit more like a human heart.
Yeah.
So maybe that's part of it.
And also I noticed, obviously, with the elongated skull, right? Can you explain why that is?
Well, that's funny. I might lose my headphones. I used to think that was pretty alien. But go look at Homo longi, the dragon man. The only big difference is with some of our ancestors is that they have a prognathic jaw. So it might even make this elongated occipital bump look less dramatic. But this is pneumatic here. So likely due to aiding in floating. Okay. The supraorbital arches are pneumatic. Now, remember that pineal gland, again, archaeology was predicting the biology. I predicted that they would have that based on all of humans' culture depictions of the third eye. And not only that, but I predicted it would be here. I decided to give this part a name myself. Why not? I call it the kappa after the Japanese mythological creature that collects water in the top of its skull.
Wow.
So this kappa region here is pneumatic. I predicted they would have a third eye. Sagittal scan came up on the viewer, and there it was.
Wow.
So it's been an incredible journey for me.
And there's one thing also regarding the nose, because obviously I read a book about the importance of breathing and the differences between noses throughout the globe, how big noses are, the nostrils and things like that, to do with temperature. Explain to me about the nose. What's your theories on this nose? Why it's so well?
Keep in mind,
barely
they
there.
are. They are, again, I said this is not that unusual compared to a human when you a past homo, I should say. But keep in mind too that these are hybrids also. They're not 100%.
Right.
So I think what you're looking at here is very much like a chimpanzee. You'll see some of the art is sometimes with shadowing. This is like a chimpanzee supraorbital arch here.
Yeah, yeah.
So that nose, it might just be, as far as I know, because I don't think it's even connected to anything. I could be wrong. We'll have to look into that. You know, you may have, you know, it's funny how many like skeptics, not them say you are, but they sent me on a research journey to find answers. So I don't know the full answer about the nose. I do want to remind everyone that we suggest they breathe cutaneously.
Yeah.
And so that nose might, again, just some sort of byproduct from the chimpanzee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Line,
I find it fascinating. I don't like to call myself a skeptic. I like to just try to get the information, right? And there's a part of me that says, no, this can't possibly be real. But then here's the evidence. You know, it's like it's just a battle, like you said at the beginning. It's like a battle of confliction between
what do they call that?
What do I feel? What's the evidence? What do I see?
This all falls under that ontological shock and bias confirmation and
But I am a true believer in there's a reason why people have come up with these stories of gods and beings and things like that. It has to have originated from somewhere. Like you say, even the dragons, right? These
are the dragons,
and if you look into these
are the dragons, these are the Naga. That's why I suggest the genus should be Naga, because I'm suggesting this is how this journey has led me. I'm like a year into 2 years into cultural stuff. While people are still arguing if these are real, I'm still making connections, saying not only are they real, but I think they come from here.
Yeah.
Because it seems to me that, again, against academia, there seems to have been a proto-human culture that spread. And guess what? In the myths of Tibet, there is a mother goddess there who continues to mate with the monkey man, have children, which creates human. It's in their myth. They tell us this, that the ogress mates with and then even in the Dogon people, they too suggest that the serpent mother continues to back cross, meaning she continues to mate with the next generation. And that's what seems to be happening with Denisovans and the Neanderthals. It's a next generation of Homo sapiens coming from Eurasia and spreading out. But it doesn't stop there. Think of all the historical inventions that have also made this route.
Oh, yeah.
Gunpowder, paper, printing.
Yeah.
So you asked, are they still around? I mean, are we just them and we're just the sort of the Shudra class? We're just the worker class.
Yeah.
We're that next hybrid.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, and is it going to happen again? Is it happening now with the brain drain from Asia? And with China's advanced cultural, is this happening right now? And there's nothing we can do about it. The Western world is the next Neanderthal.
Now, you did touch on earlier, you did mention that you said maybe these are the greys that we're talking about, the ET greys, right? That people, say. Now, there's lots of ideas, theories regarding the greys, the aliens, whether they came from outer space or they've always been here. They're in the sea. They're evil. They're fallen angels or demons. I would like to. I know this is just make believe, and we haven't got any hardcore evidence. I take that back. It's not make believe. I say no hardcore evidence. But what would you say is your theory on these greys? If these are in fact greys, are they just minding their own business? Are they good? Are they bad? If they are, if they have been seen, like with my argument with the Bigfoot, there is so many sightings of this Bigfoot, right? Hundreds a year. Why haven't we caught one yet?
Mm.
I know there's a lot of questions there, but starting first of all, what do you think? If these are greys, what do you think they are? What's their purpose?
I think they might be some sort of panspermia Genesis taxon that maybe the Earth creates on its own to act as constant gardeners, and that it's a little bit of evolution and there's a little bit of creationism there. I didn't believe in the Bible, reptilians, Anunnaki 2 years ago.
No.
Now it seems to be some sort of cocktail of putting together all these things and trying to make sense of it.
And do you think that these things are still amongst us?
Yeah, I mean, they're still amongst us. We might be them. There likely is some sort of water habitat or subterranean habitat they're engaging in. But
have you actually ever been to Nazca? And
I did have an open invitation, and so many different things went different directions. But I'll tell you what, in the time that I didn't go was the time I found larvae. I found the pineal gland. I wrote about the Euro style. So it's, people joke about, I think I was even one of them. It's like, well, how can you learn about the mummies without physically handling them? But obviously I've done so much work, and it's hard to stop researching if just today I'm covering the reproductive system. Yeah. At the very least, I'm putting the theory out there. Someone with a doctorate can come forth and say that's not what I'm seeing. I'd rather try to make sense of it, put a theory out there. We can at least have some groundwork to work from.
I think that's great as well. It just proves that you're trying to dig deep and you're trying to find the truth and work out what this thing is. Yeah, absolutely. So, do you think then that because one story that came into my head, the mummies in the box, there was somebody there was word on the street saying that these were animal parts, or like the bones weren't connected, or one arm was longer than the other, and they would do. Basically, it was a cocktail of different animal parts put together. Was that damage control? Is that fake? Was there some sort of truth behind any of that?
No, I mean, unless there are dolls, and I've called people out on too. I mean, I'll even see someone, they want to cover the truthful story about the Nazca Mummies, but they don't do the research, and they end up inserting one of the dolls. They don't mean to. I was like, oh, don't use that picture.
Have you got you mentioned these dolls? Have you got a picture of these dolls that
I don't know if I even do. I don't really. I'm not here to study those.
Yeah.
But we'll have to. I should probably keep a couple on hand. You're right. To demonstrate. So those are out there, but again, I call that Occam spork, meaning that's a low ball theory. That's a theory someone makes when they don't understand. It's like, it's a guy sitting on his porch. I joke, like, do you think I got this theory on a bar stool and just wrote it down now? This is a lot of work. So what are the Occam sporks going to say? Well, they cut off 2 fingers. Well, no, there's no evidence. Oh, well, then they sewed animal parts. There's no evidence of that.
Right.
It's funny. And one researcher that you wouldn't expect to be important in all this is a plastic surgeon. You would think, well, what does he have to do with this? But no, it turns out, what a great witness. Because he's not finding any evidence.
Yeah.
So no, that's Occam spork. That's literally, unless someone can at least show me the doll and say that's a chicken bone in the doll, maybe that I can at least. But otherwise, I just think these are what people. What's the other guy? The guy's. I mean, how terrible to say, like, maybe children were killed for this. This is this is ad hominem. This is slanderous, libelous conversation, and I like to call people out on it.
Right.
Everyone wants to be all edgy on the internet. Don't try that with me.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say as well, because this research, obviously, you've dedicated a lot of time. What's
2 years, maybe 5,000 hours, and that's not even counting my degree and the times working in the field or at the museum. So,
and with you must have got some sort of criticism and stuff. What's the emotional toll that this has had on you since doing this? You okay, Ed? It's been tough, eh? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Well, I think you've just told me the answer, right?
It's been very isolating.
Really?
It's just, it's weird not having people believe you, and like, you know, you think that you have friends who are into this stuff, and like you think they're going to be into this, and then they're dismissive. And you know, like I said, when I say I'm a independent researcher, oh,
Yeah.
look, I did that weird thing again.
Yeah.
I just got to turn off the camera and turn it back on. So yeah, I get a little emotional because it has been isolating. You know, I don't want to say that it helped break up a relationship. Well, it didn't help. It didn't help a relationship because, you know, that's my focus. People don't want to talk to you because, again, my brain is on this 24/7. And so, you know, that's a problem. And it's just, and not even that, but then I end up getting to like these political fights, kind of. They're not really but about this with people. And yeah, it gets isolating.
It just shows that you're passionate, Ed. It just shows that you're passionate. You know, why would somebody be so passionate about something and and put 2 years into something like this, look deep diving into something like this, if it was just a make-up-believe, like just a complete and utter hoax? You wouldn't. You're an intelligent. You're clearly an intelligent guy that's got the history to back this up. You've seen something, and you want to shout out to the top of the roofs, "Look, I'm seeing something here, and you need to listen." And everyone's like, I think it's sometimes for people, it's like that. Don't look up. It's the safe way to protect yourself. I'd much rather disbelieve than look like a stupid person.
Right.
You know? Yeah,
and that's why I don't think people are acknowledging some of my finds, because they don't know, and so I'm going to stay away from that. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, Ed, I really do appreciate this, and I'm sorry. Like I struggled at the beginning. I've got to be honest with you. I struggled, but we got there in the end. Finally, do you want to sort of like just plug any of your socials or anything like that?
I mean, yeah, I do a weekly show. I try to take over the, back when I was a kid, we would watch In Search Of on Sunday nights. And so I do a show on Sundays. It's probably midnight maybe your time. And it's called Let's Talk Pterodactyls. And I kind of do a lot of what I just do now. And I'll do live larva hunting. And so lately I've been going into Victoria and noticing that she seems to have larvae in her cavity. They might burrow their way back into the birth canal, where they then find their way up to the skull.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, Ed, thank you so much, mate. Stay on a second once we finish, because I'd just like to finish. But again, thank you so much. Make sure everybody at home check out the socials. Go and check out the website.
Yeah, and at Tridactyls and tridactyls.com.
Absolutely. Okay.